In my conversations directly with President Trump and Secretary Noem, I have been abundantly clear with them that Portland and the state of Oregon believe in the rule of law, and we can manage our own local public safety needs.
That was Oregon Governor Tina Kotek this weekend saying she told the Trump administration that her state doesn't need or want American troops deployed in the city of Portland. The Trump administration has gone ahead and ordered those troops deployed anyway, and now the city of Portland and the state of Oregon are pushing back both in court in a lawsuit they filed essentially instantly as soon as the deployment order was made, and also in peaceful protests, including at least one major protest this weekend that the governor herself helped lead. Joining us now is Oregon's Democratic Governor Tina Kotek. Governor, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know there's a lot going on, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rachel. Good to be here.
What do you want the country to understand about the order from the president to deploy troops in your state? What do you understand about what they're going to be doing and what the scope of this sort of impingement on your authority is going to be?
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, I want people to know that Portland, Oregon is a beautiful, vibrant, successful city. We are not a war zone. I was out there all weekend long. People were out and about, shopping, going to restaurants, going to soccer matches, going to shows. Portland is a beautiful place, and we are not under siege. There's no insurrection here. When the president makes a choice to say, I should have military troops in my state, I push back right away. We were not apprised of the reason for this. When I tried to get that from the president, it was about concerns about safety at a federal facility. And I said, look, law enforcement is on top of it. There's peaceful protests. And if people are getting out of line, they are being held accountable. I continue to not understand what the mission is here, but we don't need military intervention in Portland. And it's just unconscionable. It's nonsensical, has nothing to do with what's actually on the ground here.
I know that you spoke directly with President Trump around the time that he was making this decision, and there's been some reporting about that conversation that suggests that the president might have been basing his decision, or at least basing like his stated grounds for the decision on some inaccurate or outdated information that he has seen on social media, maybe without understanding that it wasn't current information. Can you help us understand that at all?
Well, that is my concern. You know, that's a challenge, I think, with footage that it becomes evergreen and then you don't know when it was taken. Because when I was speaking with him, he was talking about multiple federal facilities. And I was like, you know, the plywood is down. Downtown Portland is on the mend. We don't have the situation we had 5 years ago. I don't know what he is remembering. But what I do know is that local law enforcement can manage the situation that's related to the peaceful protests that are happening at the federal facility. And I think one of the things I'm so frustrated about is he is calling up the Oregon National Guard over top of my role as commander-in-chief of those troops here in Oregon. The Oregon National Guard, these are private citizens, citizen soldiers, right? They volunteer for this role. They have to come off their jobs, go away from their families to do something that is unclear, undefined, with no strategy of what they're actually trying to solve. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And most Oregonians know this makes absolute.
General, what's your reaction to what we heard so far from the president and the defense secretary?
I'm hard to put together my thoughts on this, Anna, to be honest with you. First of all, I think we ought to address the atmospherics. We're talking about a huge American flag behind the speakers. That's reminiscent of the opening scene from the movie Patton, which President Trump has said he absolutely loves. I don't think that flag is normally there at the Quantico Museum, but we'll see. In terms of what Secretary Hegseth has said, those were anticipated, as well as what the president is doing. It's anticipated. These are the kinds of speeches the president has given at Fort Bragg in front of a roaring group of soldiers who all said they were supporters of his. At West Point, I was there when he gave the graduation address. This is somewhat similar to the speech he gave at the UN. It's somewhat shocking, and it's filled with mistruths. And he's addressing a bunch of men and women who serve all over the world, who have firsthand experience in some of the alliances and what he's talking about in terms of warfighting. So I would suspect it's not being taken well. When I first started listening to the speech, I found my mouth open. I just couldn't believe some of the things that were being said to this group of individuals who have such experience. And one last thing I'd say, Anna, the thing I've got to stick up for is the defense of the American military. The soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines I've never served with Space Force Guardians, but those four services I've had the opportunity to serve with, not only in combat, but on the joint staff and in various assignments through my career. There are no finer human beings across our force. There is a reason why the other armies of the world say we are the best on the globe. They are well-trained, well-disciplined, and they swear an oath to the Constitution. And I just really find it offensive that anyone is insulting them and claiming that it's their promotions and their advancement through the services are a result of policies or wokeness or DEI, because that's just not true. Those are my thoughts on what I've heard so far.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has stood out to me was the focus by the defense secretary on appearance and grooming standards and how much people weigh and how that's such an important priority under, his leadership. This is a gathering, General, that required massive logistics and security risks as well. Military officials told NBC News that there were pricey logistical challenges here. Thousands of people scrambling to make last-minute trips, many from their posts in remote parts of the world. One officer saying just getting through the gate will be hilarious. I mean, the costs are one thing, but what about the risks? And based on what we've heard, what's your assessment on whether this event was worth the risk?
Well, there's been a lot of people making a big issue of the targeting of this facility, given that all of the military commanders, as well as the secretary and probably many of his officials and the president and many of his officials, you can make an argument for the fiscal cost and the requirements for everybody to get there and get into a hotel and a rental car to get to Quantico. But I think the costs are greater from the standpoint of what the world is seeing and why this event is taking place. This is an unserious conference. Many people don't know, but the president holds a combatant commanders conference twice a year for all of his major combatant commanders. They normally come in, they have 3 or 4 days in Washington together. It's usually classified because people don't want to know that all the 4-stars and their aides are in one area, but they do it twice a year. So I'm still not sure why this event took place. And it certainly is costly, risky for those who are there, but also risky from the standpoint of how people see us around the globe.
Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, always good to have you with us.
With no strategy of what they're actually trying to solve. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And most Oregonians know this makes absolutely no sense.
I know that as part of this lawsuit that the state has filed to try to block this deployment, both Portland Police and Oregon State Police have issued statements, declarations saying they don't need or want federal troops in Portland to deal with protesters, not only from your perspective as the state's governor, but from their perspective as to the relevant law enforcement here. They're saying that federal troops would not help and they don't need it. I'm wondering how that kind of reaction from law enforcement, kind of support for your side of this argument from law enforcement may bolster this case. It seems to me like a really important factor here.
Well, as a responsible governor, I go and ask law enforcement, do you need additional help? Is there something you can't manage? And what I'm hearing is no. We've not had an ask of the Oregon State Police at this point to help even the Portland Police manage the ongoing sporadic demonstrations that are of concern to the federal administration. And when I spoke to Homeland Security Nome and as well as the president, I said, I don't understand what is the concern that we can't manage here. And I think it's really important to point out that the groundswell of support, or at least the opposition to the deployment, business leaders, we had business leaders at our press conference saying, look, this is not what downtown Portland needs. We're on the rise. You're sending the wrong message. We have mayors across the greater Portland area saying, We stand with Portland. There's not an issue here. And if there is mutual aid opportunities if that's the case. So I'm perplexed. I'm frustrated. I don't understand this. And we're fighting in the courts, right? The attorney general and I are at lockstep. He went to court the day we got the order. I was hoping we'd get some more time to actually talk this through, but the president just came out on a Sunday morning and said, our troops, you're going to take your troops and they're coming to town. That is not how we should do this. This is not what our country should look like. And when I was on the protest in the demonstration line yesterday, walking with the mayor, we value our ability as Americans, as Oregonians, to express our concern about this administration. And people are going to continue to do that lawfully. We can keep people safe and have lawful demonstrations. And that's what we want to do here. And we do not need the help of the federal administration.
Let's be clear. What Trump did in Portland was an abuse of power. Governor Tina Kotek laid it out plainly. Portland was no war zone. There was no siege. Life was moving along. People were out at restaurants, soccer matches, and shows. Yet Trump decided to override the state, call in federal troops, and treat a vibrant American city like it was Baghdad in 2003. That's unconstitutional overreach, plain and simple. States have governors for a reason. Local law enforcement exists for a reason. They know their communities, they understand the dynamics on the ground, and they were saying, loud and clear, we don't need or want federal troops here. Both the Portland Police and Oregon State Police backed that up. When even the cops are saying, thanks, but no thanks, you'd think a president would respect that, right? No, not Trump. He bulldozed over state authority because it made for good TV and played well to his law and order base. The kicker? He may have been operating on outdated information rather than real intelligence. Reports suggest that he was making decisions based on really outdated or recycled social media footage, videos that failed to reflect the current reality. Like, imagine that, the President of the United States sending troops into an American city based on random Facebook clips and half-remembered chaos from prior years. That is some reckless reality TV politics at its most dangerous. And what about the National Guard, right? These are not full-time soldiers. They're our neighbors, our coworkers, moms and dads who volunteer to serve in emergencies. Trump yoinked them from their families and jobs to solve a problem that didn't exist. No clear mission, no defined strategy, just a political stunt that wasted taxpayer dollars and strained the local trust. Kotek was right to call it nonsensical, because it was. This is the larger pattern with Trump, too, turning governance into a stage set. He loves the giant flag draped behind him, the echoes of a Patton movie, the military optics. Behind the theatrics lies hollow decision-making driven by ego instead of facts. He asks no questions about what this community actually needs. Healthcare, jobs, nothing, no. Instead, he asks, how does this look for me? Does this make me look good as a powerful, strong boy? That's why Oregonians fought back instantly, with lawsuits, with peaceful protests, with business leaders and mayors saying, this is wrong. Because they saw what was happening. A president who swore an oath to the Constitution was trampling all over it, sending troops where they were not welcome, creating fear instead of safety, and undermining the very rule of law he claimed to defend. Bottom line, Trump failed to protect Portland. He failed to protect Oregon. He failed to protect America. He protected himself, his image, his narrative. And that's exactly why this move was wrong, fundamentally and politically un-American.